7, Niner, 4, 3, touch.
Get in position and wait for my go.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Erkley and welcome to another edition of the PE Crime Blotter, a weekly look at crime here in the Inland Empire. We begin with crime headlines. Riverside police are investigating the killing of a woman in her apartment as a potential murder-suicide after her boyfriend was struck and killed by a train shortly after her death Friday morning, June 15th. Police say a family member discovered the body of 34-year-old Catherine Sanchez at 9:15 in her apartment in the 8800 block of Indiana Avenue, south of Monroe Street. Officials say Sanchez had a history of domestic violence with an estranged boyfriend. Riverside County coroner's officials confirmed that the boyfriend was the same man who was killed by a train at 1:25 a.m., less than 3 miles from where the woman was killed. Police are considering the man as a person of interest in the case until all other suspects can be ruled out. The owner of a Temecula massage parlor, accused of conspiring to steal from one of her customers as he lay naked on a massage table, pleaded not guilty Monday, June 18th to robbery and making a false police report. 51-year-old Yi Candy Zhang was arrested and released on bond shortly after the March 6th incident at Pacific Massage on Jefferson Avenue. Zhang told investigators that 3 men, one armed with a gun, stormed into her business one evening, roughing up and robbing her and an employee and taking the customer's wallet. But surveillance footage told a different story, as on the video, Zhang could be seen hugging one of the robbers, according to sheriff's officials. A 38-year-old man was arrested Friday, June 15th, after police say he raped and robbed a Marietta woman in her home, then returned 2 hours later and raped her again. Frank Wyatt Kelly of Marietta was arrested at his home in the 24,000 block of Bearskin Circle on suspicion of multiple sex offenses and robbery. Police say Kelly befriended the 60-year-old woman, helping her unload items from her car Wednesday afternoon. Later, he returned, raped her, and stole money. The woman, who was afraid of Kelly, did not immediately report the attack to police, and about 2 hours after the initial assault, he returned to the woman's house and raped her again. LA police detectives are searching for the brother of a Running Springs man whose decomposing body was found in a Cadillac Escalade in West Hollywood. LAPD homicide detectives found the body of 33-year-old Stephen John Simmons on June 9th inside an Escalade off a busy intersection at Willoughby Avenue and North Genesee Avenue. Passerby reported a foul odor coming from the car, prompting police to investigate. The body had decomposed beyond recognition. Coroner's officials said Simmons suffered a gunshot wound to the chest, but it's unclear where the shooting occurred. Police are searching for Simmons' stepbrother, Jacob Anthonson, who has not been seen for several weeks. Detectives are not considering Anthonson a suspect in Simmons' death, but are concerned he may be a victim of foul play. Officials say an 8-year-old boy playing in a relative's Paris front yard was shot in the leg Thursday, June 14th, when gunfire broke out between two groups of men in the street. The shooting was reported about 5:30 p.m. at Opal and Turquoise Drive. Shots also struck 2 vehicles and a mobile home. The boy was treated at a hospital and released, according to Riverside County Sheriff's officials. Well, that does it for this week's crime headlines. Coming up next, we discuss the death of Rodney King and In Depth. It's now time for our In Depth segment. We are discussing Rodney King. As you probably heard by now, Rodney King passed away this past Sunday at his home. He was found at the bottom of the swimming pool in Rialto. Rich Diatley from the Press Enterprise, he was there on scene on Sunday. Rich, there's been a lot of talk, but police right now are not considering foul play. It's still under investigation. They've done the autopsy, haven't released the results though, because they are waiting for the toxicology report.
Right, and the San Bernardino County Sheriff Coroner estimates that'll be about 4 to 6 weeks of work. What happens in this is that they take samples of tissue from the brain, the liver, the kidney, sometimes about 2 types of blood samples, sometimes hair samples as well. They analyze these for any substances, and then they have to further analyze them if they do find something to see exactly what and what amount. That all takes time. There's also a backlog of these kinds of cases, and they're important to everyone who's involved. Rodney King was famous, other people aren't, but law enforcement and the family, loved ones of these people also want those results. And so coroner's offices have learned to take this media pressure and that might be on them and put it aside. Maybe the best example of this is Michael Jackson. He died in 2009, June 25th, I believe. And the coroner's report came out on him on August 28th, 2 months and 3 days later. Obviously, the kind of pressure you can imagine on the LA County Coroner's Office to come across with that report, it just takes time.
So you're saying probably 4 to 6 weeks?
4 to 6 weeks is what the San Bernardino County Sheriff Coroner has predicted.
Now, neighbors are saying that they did hear some loud arguing going on in the backyard, but right now police aren't reading into that too much.
Not too much. They haven't characterized what that exchange was, but they didn't say anything at the scene or afterward to implicate that that may have anything directly to do with Rodney King's apparent drowning.
All right, Rich, thanks for joining us. Be sure to keep us updated when the toxicology report is released for Mr. King. That does it for our in-depth segment. Coming up, Rich will be back with us for On the Docket. It's now time for our On the Docket segment. We're taking a look at the big court cases here in both Riverside and San Bernardino counties this week. Joining us once again is the Press Enterprise's Rich Diatley. Rich, first guy we're looking at, Earl Ellis Green, convicted of the murder of Riverside police officer Ryan Bonaminio. Green will be sentenced on Monday.
Right. Jurors recommended the death penalty for Green. You can expect his defense attorneys to argue first for a new trial and also perhaps for his sentence to be lowered to life in prison without parole. Those are both standard kinds of filings in these cases, but Monday should be the last time we see him here in Riverside County Superior Court.
Next, a Mentone family in a child abuse case.
Right. The children belong to Cheryl Mock, and the boyfriend was Jordan Brommer. They are each charged with 6 counts of felony child abuse for a child under the age of 5. At one point, they were offered a settlement. They refused, and now they're heading for trial.
Next, in Menifee, a man accused of killing a Chihuahua with a golf club.
Larry Edward Jarigi, a retired school administrator, he has pleaded not guilty to 1 felony count of animal abuse. This took place in January this year in the gated community where witnesses allege he struck a 6-pound chihuahua with a golf club, fatally killing.
And on Friday, Mike Rios, the Moreno Valley School Board members, back in court.
Right, and this will be a preliminary hearing on both the cases that he's charged with, both a assault with a deadly weapon charge, an attempted murder charge outside of his home, and a pimping and pandering case that was filed separately.
And then finally, Michael Barber in a double homicide case in Paris.
Right, this is, he's accused of slaying his wife and her 6-year-old daughter. Prosecutors say the motive was he found out through a DNA test the little girl wasn't his. It's a death penalty case.
All right, Rich, thanks for joining us. Definitely some interesting developments to play out here in the next week. That does it for our On the Docket segment. Coming up next, we're going to have Off the Beat, a full-out brawl over the weekend in Denny's. We have the video from Redlands. Don't miss it. Coming up next in Off the Beat. All right, it is now time for our Off the Beat segment, and I'm pretty sure this first one takes the cake, or should I say flapjack. I'm joined by Press Enterprise's Eric Vilchis. Eric, over the weekend, was it over the Grand Slam meal or the 468 meal, but a complete brawl at the Denny's in Redlands?
A complete brawl at the Denny's. Apparently, a couple of folks came back after there might have been some drinking involved. They were dressed in cocktail attire, and whether it was over the blueberry syrup or the regular syrup, I don't know, but they got into a big hubbub. But let me just say, we in no way endorse anything that happened. It did happen in Redlands. It is on YouTube, and we did link to it on our site, but we in no way endorse anything that happened.
And you might think it would be a bunch of tough guys, but it was actually women.
A couple of women. Now, if you're going to go and watch the video, we got to warn you that there's some rough language going on in there, and there's actually some brief nudity, so be careful.
All right, definitely interesting. Another interesting one, kind of in the not so smart decision category by a criminal in the Southwest, leaving the cell phone behind at a robbery.
That's right. Again, we in no way endorse a criminal life in any way, but if you're going to be a criminal and commit a crime, have some brains at least. Never leave behind any incriminating evidence of any kind. I'm talking about DNA, fingerprints, those kinds of things. And especially, never leave behind your cell phone. Here's what happened. Woman comes home, opens the garage with a remote control, sees a burglar in her garage fumbling around with her safe from her bedroom. He takes off running. She goes into the house, finds it ransacked and her jewelry gone, and sees a cell phone sitting on the dresser that doesn't belong to her. She calls 911, cops come, go across town, and they arrest the 19-year-old burglar on the spot.
She called 911 with his phone?
I hope so. He was charged also. No word yet on whether or not he had Angry Birds on there or not.
Oh, hey. All right, Eric, thanks for joining us. That wraps up this week's Off the Beat segment and also wraps up this week's PE Crime Blotter. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.